Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Hello, everybody. Long time no see. Actually, not that long. It's only been, 2 weeks? The Astro Awards were 2 weeks away. 2 weeks ago. Not away. How is everybody? I hope everyone's doing fantastic. It's a wonderful looking Tuesday morning, afternoon, or morning, late morning out there in Florida. Looks like it's going to be a fantastic launch. This is something that's pretty darn exciting, if you ask me, because it's going to be the first time that SpaceX has flown Northrop Grumman's Cygnus Spacecraft, and I just think that's cool. I like seeing kind of those different things. Now, it's not the first time Cygnus has flown on another rocket. We'll talk about that in a second, but it is the first time they've flown on a Falcon 9. So, yeah, let's dive right into what we're going to see, what we're going to, where it's going, what it's doing, all of the things that we always talk about at the beginning of any of these live streams by going to everydayastronaut.com, clicking on upcoming launches. You'll see that right there in the left. I guess right now it's kind of half covered up. No, it's right in the middle there at the top. Upcoming launches, you will see it right there. And yeah, we'll just go through this. So this is the CRS-2. It's the second round of commercial resupply contracts, but it's NG-20 with a Cygnus capsule. And we'll talk more about that here. Subject to liftoff is at 12:07 Eastern, 17:07 UTC, or as you can tell over in the countdown clock on the screen, we're about 32 minutes away. Looks like I started a little bit early. My bad. Please forgive me. It's gonna be taking off today, of course, January 30th. Almost the end of the month. Crazy. Okay. Mission name. Again, this is NG-20. It's the second resupply contracts for NASA. This is the Cygnus SS Patricia Patty Hilliard Robertson. They always name their spacecraft after influential people in the industry, which I think is really cool. The launch provider, what rocket is launching it? This is SpaceX is the launch provider. They're the ones doing the launch. The customer for this is, altogether it's NASA, because it's still a NASA resupply mission to the International Space Station. They're sending up cargo and supplies to the International Space Station. That's what the CRS missions are, the Commercial Resupply missions. And the crazy thing here is, it's also Northrop Grumman is also the customer, because they had to hire SpaceX now that the Antares is currently not launching until they get into the next round of Antares, which will be built by Firefly. So the booster will be built by Firefly. So it's this cool back and forth, and kind of has a lot of people involved in this, which I just kind of find fun. So yeah. This is the Falcon 9. So those are the customers, NASA and Northrop Grumman. The rocket for this is, of course, a Falcon 9 version 1.2 Block 5. I don't think I've ever seen us call it a version 1.2 Block 5. I love that I always read through this beforehand, and then I still am stumped by things by my my own website. Yeah, I knew that. Guys, why is it... the launch location. This is, oh, by the way, this booster has flown 10 times. That's the B1077-10. Sorry, there's a lot of numbers on screen. I'll zoom in there. B1077-10. That means it's flown 10 times whenever you see that that designation afterwards. I'll zoom in even more. There we go. How about that? Launch location for this is taking off from Slick 40, or SLC 40, Space Launch Complex 40, at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Now, again, if you see SLC, Space Launch Complex, instead of just LC, SLC means it's at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. LC just means Launch Complex, and that's going to be at Kennedy Space Center. They're right there next to each other. It's just a designation between the two different sites. Payload mass, it's about 8,000 kilograms, or about 17,600 pounds, which includes Cygnus mass of 3,726 kilograms, which, yeah. Where's the spacecraft going? It's going to the International Space Station, the ISS, circular low Earth orbit, which is currently at 426 kilometers in altitude, and it's at 51.6 degree inclination, but it's initially going to park in a 245 kilometer and at 51.64 degree inclination. So basically what that means is they park below it. They get into a stable orbit below the ISS, and then they raise up to the ISS. So the important thing, though, is that the orbits are in line. That's the biggest deal. That's why these launches have to happen at a precise second. Because if you an orbit, imagine like a hula hoop around a globe, and the globe is spinning. The globe is spinning at like almost like 1,500 kilometers an hour, or about 1,000 miles an hour, roughly. And so if you imagine that relative to the rotation of the Earth, the orbit is stationary. That means that if you imagine like you're sitting here in the sky and all of a sudden this orbital ring would be passing over you at 1,500 kilometers an hour. So in order to align to that, you have to be able to launch. That's why they have to have an instantaneous launch window, so that when they launch, they're in path with that orbit. Otherwise, it'll be past it. You know what I mean? And like you'd have to fly, do this dogleg maneuver, and catch back up to it. That's why these missions are kind of fun. Wow, I'm seeing. Oh man, good to hear from everybody. Sorry, I'll get to all your guys' awesome super chats and stuff. Wow. Okay, we will get to those. Thank you so much. I gotta say real quick a huge thank you to Joey Leal, $50. Much love to everyone. Thank you so much, Joey. Everyone in chat, say thank you, Joey. What a way to kick off a stream. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. That's awesome. Thank you. Let's keep going here. Will they be attempting to recover the first stage? Yes. This will be the first time Cygnus has flown on a reusable launch vehicle. Where will the first stage be landing? This is exciting. Falcon has enough performance to do a return to launch site landing even. So it'll be landing back on land at LZ1, which is, pretty close, about 9 kilometers away from the launch site. So return to launch site is relative when it's obviously not returning to the actual... Nowadays, back in the day, they did that. They had the landing site a ways out, just kind of these big landing pads as like, oh no, what if, something goes wrong? Nowadays, I think they're accurate. I mean, when they land over in Vandenberg, they're landing within like a few hundred meters or whatever. It's quite close. I'm surprised they're not trying to just land it like literally right next to the launch pad these days with how accurate they are. Anyway, are they attempting to recover the fairings? Yes, and they will be recovered from the water about 465 kilometers downrange by Doug, the ship. Are these fairings new? To be determined, but they are likely flight proven. How's the weather looking? 95% go for launch. That's crazy. This would be the 21st Cygnus mission overall. The 4th Cygnus mission on a non-Antares rocket because it flew 3 times on an Atlas V. So I think the first time was in was it the end of 2014 or the end of 2015? It flew on a Atlas V. I think end of 2014. I think it flew on OA4, OA6, and OA7 were Atlas V missions. I went to OA5, and that was awesome. That was really, really cool. That was a really, really fun mission. So it's flown on an Atlas V before. This is the 4th time it's flown on a non-Antares rocket. First time on a Falcon 9. So first Cygnus mission on a Falcon 9. 295th Falcon 9 launch. We're coming up on 300 Falcon 9 launches. Insane. 226 Falcon 9 flight with a flight-proven booster. That's even more crazy. 240th reflight of a booster. The 9th reflight of a booster in 2024. The 269th booster landing. The 195th consecutive landing in a row of successful landings. That's absolutely wild. I mean, that's a better launch streak. 195 consecutive launches without failure is like unheard of, basically. I mean, there's very few rockets that have had that kind of reliability, let alone a landing streak. That's crazy. It's so hard to even fathom, and that's where I know that it's easy to sound like a total SpaceX fanboy about this stuff, but these numbers are just ridiculous. They're 10 to 100 times greater than the next closest launch provider in terms of sheer numbers these days. I mean, last year they launched almost 100 times, and like it's just it is crazy. These numbers are ridiculous, and they're well worth applauding. So 10th launch for SpaceX. That's kind of what we talked about at the Astro Awards. It's like, like we're giving out Astro Awards to things that are awesome. And we can't just sit here and celebrate when they break records, because that's all SpaceX does lately. It's just break their own records over and over and over every single year. It's just getting ridiculous. The 10th launch for SpaceX in 2024, 166th SpaceX launch from Slick 40, and 21st orbital launch attempt of 2024 already. We're not even through the end of the month, and we're already at 21 launches. Crazy. So here's the Cygnus Spacecraft, or Space Keg, as I like to call it, because it really does just look like a giant flying keg. and it's tucked inside Falcon 9's payload fairing. And yeah, there's some really cool missions. And by the way, this is Patricia. I'm sure we'll hear about her more on the stream. These are some of the science missions. There's a robotic arm that's meant for surgery that's going to practice surgical techniques and testing out latency and stuff like that on ground. This is the kind of stuff that makes me excited, you know, real and like cartilage regrowth. A few awesome things are being flown on this mission. There's always cool and exciting science that flies on any of these commercial resupply missions, and this is definitely loaded full of cool science. But I want to get to your guys' questions. We got a little bit here. I think I started a little bit early because I'm not even seeing the stream is not quite up yet. As soon as it pops up, we will get to it and we will get to your guys' questions. Yeah. Oh, really exciting news. Really exciting news. I hope you're tuned in. People are asking about launch day. No, you don't need launch day coupon code right now. If you go to shop.everydayastronaut.com or everydayastronaut.com/shop, we have so many of our classic shirts 50% off. That's right, not 15, 50% off. So things like our full flow, what we have left of our original full flow is 50% off. The F1 shirt that I'm wearing, 50% off. The Aerospike shirt, 50% off. Normal shirt, 50% off. The full flow hoodie, 50% off. So many, even the RS-25, 50% off. So some of these awesome shirts. There's 2 pages, by the way. We also have some drinkware and a few other things. Now, some things have sold out because what we're doing is we're clearing out a lot of inventory here. So you will see some stuff that's just full. Actually, they got rid of the things that say sold out. I like seeing the things that are sold out. I think that we shouldn't be getting rid of those. I like seeing what things there's been a handful of things. So if you want like the best deal ever on any of our stuff, we're literally just trying to clear out all of our old inventory to make room for some of our new stuff. We have a whole new collection coming up soon that I think is really exciting. As long, you know, we also have some of our new stuff here, like our Methalox shirt and hoodie and pointy end up, flaming end down stuff, the new stuff, hypergolic shirts, and new full flow shirt. We also have, where is that cool? The cool drinkware is also, I think, the thing that makes me most excited. What is this thing? Get out of here, guy. There's a bug flying around. Spooked me. Yeah, and we also even have a little sale on our Falcon 9 metal model rockets that we'll see fly today. So check it out, everydayastronaut.com/shop. 50% off. Click on the RUDs. It's rapid, unscheduled discounts, even though they're kind of scheduled. But that's the joke. That's the joke. You get it. everydayastronaut.com. Enjoy. And now we wait for the stream while we answer some questions. All right. Let's see here. From Dave Graham. Thank you so much, Dave, for your super chat and saying hi. This is awesome. This is from Wilbo saying, without so many of you nerds, I couldn't watch this unusual launch. It is unusual. It is strange to see, you know, a Cygnus capsule flying on a Falcon 9 because normally it flies on Antares, and Antares won't be flying again until they get the new booster stage from Firefly, which will be really exciting. Let's see here. From Chazzy Mac, let's go. I know it's super early, but as your eyes on the ground today, I can confirm pointy end up, flaming end down. I'm probably an honorary expert trained by the only officially trained expert, but I think I got it. Chazzy, that's awesome to hear. Chazzy is out at the Cape today doing a tour. Caught great glimpses of the rocket on the pad. That is always super fun. Like when you get to see a rocket on the pad and you know that in the next, you know, several minutes or whatever, in the next few hours, it's going to launch and go to space and you're going to watch it launch and feel its rumble. It's so exciting. I mean, I feel like some of us, you know, like launch photographers and media people get a little bit, you'd think we'd get a little more, you know, like spoiled by it, I guess, where you're like, just another rocket. And in some ways, yeah, like there's some feeling of like, you know, trepidation about like going out to the pad. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt. It's always several hours and stuff. But as soon as you turn the corner and you pull up to the rocket and you get close to it, you still, I mean, I bet even if you work at SpaceX and you've seen 100 of these things fly or 200, you probably still get a little sense of just, dang, this is crazy. So I hope you enjoy it. So this is a good question from Hill CT. How does Cygnus compare to Cargo Dragon? So the Dragon capsule, one of the big things about Dragon is that it's recoverable and it's reusable and it's reflyable. So the Dragon capsule has an unpressurized cargo trunk that is where they can do, things that are going to stay outside of the space station. So say they want to attach new batteries or some kind of new something, they can put that in the trunk of the Dragon capsule. Then the Dragon capsule itself is pressurized and has a heat shield and a reentry system to be able to bring back down mass. And of course, when it's a crew Dragon capsule, it can bring back humans. Cygnus, on the other hand, is meant to be, and it's designed to be fully disposable. And it's basically, after its missions, it becomes the ISS space trash system. So they basically load it up with literally disposables and let it re-enter and burn up on re-entry. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things. Mass-wise, the actual dry mass of Cygnus, I believe, is a lot less than Cargo Dragon because it's, missing heat shields and parachutes. Oh, here we go. We have the official stream up. Let me get this all ready to go here for you guys. Oh, baby, they got it in. We got the good stuff today. I'll just do 1080 since we're only streaming in 1080. But yes, it's actually being streamed in 4K. Thank you, NASA. Much, much appreciated. Okay, so we'll tune into that as soon as we can. But otherwise, they're generally, I think there's similar volumes and things like that. I can't remember the exact dimensions offhand. Sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once. Okay, ooh, we got test on screen. Let's get rid of the closed captions. Okay, this is from the Anonymous Beard. Doing well, Tim. Loved the formal Astro Awards this year. The first in-person Astro Awards was so much fun. I just got to say thank you to everyone that made it in person and everyone that tuned in live. If you haven't watched it yet, too, I think it's pretty great. It's worth watching. We've definitely got a few things to fix up and make better for next year. But in general, I think we did a pretty darn good job. I'm really proud of our team. Really, really proud of our team. I mean, it was a monumental. Doing something like that is so much easier said than done. And to pull it off as well as I think they and we did is honestly quite. I'm very proud. I'm very proud. Ooh, we got a rocket on the pad, my friends. All right, I'm gonna shut up and listen.
Liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida in just under 17 minutes from now. Today's mission marks SpaceX's 10th mission of 2024 and second mission headed to the International Space Station so far this year. Thanks for tuning in to today's coverage of NG-20, Northrop Grumman's 20th resupply mission to the orbiting laboratory. I'm Jesse Anderson, a manufacturing engineering manager here at SpaceX. Since 2012, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket has supported operations on the International Space Station, delivering critical science, hardware, and supplies to crew aboard the space station with the use of our Dragon crew and cargo vehicles. And today, for the first time, we have a new spacecraft on board Falcon 9 with the same purpose in mind. We are excited to be launching Cygnus to low Earth orbit on its 20th resupply mission to the International Space Station. This is the first Falcon 9 launch of Cygnus this year. As part of NASA's Commercial Resupply Services contract, SpaceX and Northrop Grumman offer safe, reliable, and cost-effective transportation to and from the International Space Station. Now, in fact, Dragon and Cygnus are currently the only two operational U.S. cargo supply vehicles.
Audio issues? And it's only SpaceX, right? Yeah, I'm not hearing. Okay, let me do my good old restart of this.
Which ultimately further our goal of one day making life multiplanetary. Now at T-minus 15 minutes and 30 seconds, all is looking good for an on-time launch. The vehicle and payload are healthy. The range is right there in Florida. Is preparing for their upcoming delivery. For more on those preparations, NASA's Rob Navius. Rob?
Well, thank you, Jesse, and good day to everyone from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center. It's a full house aboard the International Space Station with 11 crew members representing 8 nations in support of the Axiom 3 mission. But the focus of attention today is the Falcon 9 launch of the SS Patricia Hilliard Robertson Cygnus cargo craft, Northrop Grumman's resupply vehicle that is poised to deliver 4 tons of science and supplies to the outpost. Now, a launch today for Cygnus will bring the spacecraft to the station in the wee hours Thursday, where NASA astronauts Jasmine Mogbelli and Laurel O'Hara will be poised in the cupola at the robotics workstation, ready to extend the Canadarm2 robotic arm to grapple Cygnus for its installation to the Earth-facing common berthing mechanism on the Unity module for a stay of about 6 months. Originally, Cygnus was to have spent 4 months on the station, but its stay has been extended to mid-July to accommodate stowage and potential reboost capability. So with you, Jesse, we're watching the countdown clocks ticking backward. Now back to you in Hawthorne.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Falcon 9 is a reusable two-stage rocket designed and manufactured by SpaceX for the reliable and safe transport of people and payloads in Earth orbit and beyond. Today marks SpaceX's 305th launch, and for those of you following along, you'll know that about 1/3 of those launches were in 2023 alone and represent 80% of the world's total mass to orbit. We are currently launching about every 3 days and are looking to launch up to 150 missions in 2024. And reusability is what makes this all possible. Starting from the bottom of the rocket, the first stage, also referred to as the booster, makes up over 60% of the entire length of the Falcon 9 vehicle. It's also the part of the vehicle that gets reused over and over. In fact, the dark soot that you see around the lower part of the first stage are remnants from its previous 9 launches. This booster is a well-versed veteran launch vehicle and is set to return back to land again today. The white section above the black inner stage is the second stage. After the first and second stages separate about 2.5 minutes into flight, the second stage will ignite its MVAC engine to carry the Cygnus spacecraft to orbit. Above the second stage is the payload fairing, which is the nose cone structure at the very top of the rocket. It protects the payload, and in this case, the Cygnus spacecraft, until we reach space. Around 3 minutes into flight, once we've exited Earth's atmosphere, we will jettison the fairing halves and attempt to retrieve them once they return back down to Earth. This payload fairing was customized to accommodate late load operations on the pad, and we'll talk more about these modifications a bit later in the program.
I want to hear about that.
For now, let's learn a bit more about the spacecraft itself. Rob?
Thanks, Jesse. As mentioned earlier, Northrop Grumman's Cygnus cargo craft is about to deliver about 4 tons of science and supplies to the International Space Station, hitching a ride today for the first time on the venerable SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. On the phone with us right now to discuss this unique marriage of rockets and resupply is a former veteran astronaut, Dan Tawney, who flew 2 supply and assembly missions to the International Space Station. He is now Northrop Grumman's program manager for human exploration and operations. Dan, it's been a while, but it's great to have you with us today.
Rob, it's great to hear your voice and to be working with you again. Thanks for the call.
Our pleasure, Dan. From your experience on board the station a few years ago, what's involved in unloading a cache of cargo that a resupply vehicle brings to the complex in what amounts to its own complex operation?
Yeah, it is a complex operation, and from a crew member's point of view, boy, it's like Christmas. Or nowadays, it's like watching the Amazon truck show up and unload a bunch of stuff. We're bringing over 8,000 pounds of stuff to the crew, and not only is it, the scientific experiments and stuff that the space station itself needs, but it's food, it's clothes, and really, personally, to the crew, it's notes and mementos and stuff from their families and friends. It's great to put a little personal stuff in there. So it's an exciting day to receive a new cargo ship, but boy, they've got a lot of hours ahead, unloading everything, putting it someplace in the station, and then and filling it back up with trash.
And Dan, this Cygnus is named after astronaut Patty Hilliard Robertson, a good friend of yours, who tragically lost her life in a plane crash in 2001. You knew her very well. So on this day, a special day for you, your thoughts about her and the fact that Cygnus is named in her memory.
Yeah, one of the things we've done on Cygnus from their very first mission is name them after space pioneers, people that are very important to the human space program. And this is very personal for many of us. In my class, we've been able to name a Cygnus for Pierce Sellers, and Laurel Clark was the last one. And in this one, we get to honor Patty Robertson. She was in the class of '98. We were in the class of '96, so we were sort of the sophomores to her freshman class, and so we got the honor of being with those guys when they were getting ready for their first 238 flight and their first sim and their first NBL run, and so got to know them very well. Patty, you know, she lit up a room. She was so wonderful to work with. Her attitude was great. She was smiling. You know, everybody loved her, and it's such a tragedy when we lost her. So it is certainly my pleasure and my honor to be part of the Cygnus team that gets to honor Patty and her memory and get her into space sort of officially, or get her namesake into space. So it's really a fantastic honor and a pleasure for us to be able to do that.
Dan, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate your thoughts and good luck today. Dan Tawney, Northrop Grumman's Program Manager for Human Exploration and Operations. With that, Jesse, back to you in Hawthorne.
In order to support Cygnus missions, SpaceX designed a custom fairing and payload transfer truck with a mobile clean room to support late load operations, which happen while the rocket is horizontal and on the pad deck. Late load refers to loading cargo in the final hours before launch and after the spacecraft has already been encapsulated inside the fairing. The fairing modifications includes a new roughly 5-foot by 4-foot fairing door that opens directly into the mobile clean room. At T-minus 24 hours, late load ops began. Techs removed the door and opened Cygnus's forward hatch to load time-sensitive cargo right on the pad. And then at T-minus 7 hours, Falcon 9 went vertical. Now with T-minus 8 minutes to go, all is looking good for an on-time liftoff today. Again, the payload and vehicle are healthy. The range is ready to support, and weather looks amazing over there in Florida. For now, let's head back to Rob for a closer look at the science on today's mission. Rob?
Jesse, thanks. We're at T-minus 7 minutes, 30 seconds and counting to the launch of the Falcon 9 rocket and the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft, which, as we said, is delivering about 4 tons of science and supplies to the space station. You know, science for every crew that lives and works on board the station is the main objective of activities up on orbit. Today's delivery is designed to improve.
So there's a few really good questions. One I just can't let pass because I think there's a little confusion here from this user. I can't read the name very well. So wait, they set the rocket up right with them inside. There's no person inside this vehicle today. When SpaceX flies a crew, they will use the Crew Dragon capsule, which is looks different. It's not inside of a fairing. It sits on top of the rocket with an abort system and parachutes and heat shields. That is not what they're doing today. They're using a payload fairing, and there's just cargo inside is all. So yes, they load the cargo while horizontal, and then they erect it vertically using the transporter erector and the strong back to take it out to the pad and make it go from horizontal to vertical. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. No one is on this. And by the way, we did a fun poll. We're at T-minus like 6 minutes, and the poll is, will they launch today? And I mean, in my opinion, very strong yes. If I was a betting person, I'd say hard yes. Let's listen in though. Oh, also,
it's T-minus.
We'll do our pointy end up, flaming end down. Perfect shot for this. I can confirm with my own eyes and my visual ocular assessment that this is indeed pointy end up, flaming end down.
Launch, and at this point, RP1 fuel is completely loaded on the second stage and nearly complete on first stage. Liquid oxygen loading is underway on both stages and will complete at T-minus 2 minutes to launch. We're also loading helium gas into both stages. Falcon 9 uses helium as a pressurant to backfill the propellant tanks as liquid oxygen and RP1 are consumed by the Merlin engines during ascent. Helium load began before the broadcast went live and will continue to top off until 1.5 minutes before launch.
Jesse, to make sure engine startup goes well, SpaceX performed what is called engine chill, where a small amount of the super chilled liquid oxygen flowed into the Merlin engine's turbo pumps. This was done to avoid a thermal shock to the propulsion system when the full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen is introduced into the Falcon 9 plumbing. Cygnus is also undergoing final vehicle health checks at this moment as it prepares to go on internal battery power, all of that being monitored by Northrop Grumman flight controllers in Dulles, Virginia.
Now, the next event coming up will be the transporter erector retracting away from the vehicle. Now, the transporter erector, or the TE, is that large structural structure next to Falcon 9, which you can see there on your screen. There are some clamp arms that are around the second stage, just below the fairing. Those will open up first, and once they are fully open, then the TE...
retract has started.
Then the TE can recline away from the vehicle. And we did hear a call out that strong back retract is starting now. And it's a bit slow and slight, but you can see on your screen those clamp arms that I mentioned just below the fairing there are opening up. Again, in these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on its primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems in preparation for flight. And it looks like the clamp arms are now fully open, and it's very slow and slight, but you can see the TE slowly moving away from the vehicle. And that should conclude the TE retraction. Now, we may hear some callouts that engines are also sufficiently chilled as we get a little closer to liftoff.
All right, guys. Like I said, I'll answer some questions here, and I'll stick around. I will be answering a lot of questions during like the coast phase and when there is time to do so. But yeah, we know a lot of the stuff, probably a lot. Let's just get to a few more things. This is a good question from NFN World Peace. I love those pictures from the International Space Station looking down on other spacecraft when they approach. Is there a website dedicated to just those shots? I love those. Love these streams. Good question. I don't think there's a site necessarily dedicated to only those types, but images.nasa.gov does post like an insane amount of content. You can filter and do searches and stuff. You might be able to find a handful of shots, but I don't know how you can filter by just those. By the way, look at how much different the tower there at Slick 40 looks with the crew access arm attached. I have not seen it so complete. I mean, this is looking flight ready. It hasn't been used yet, though, right? I actually thought that Axiom was going to fly on it originally. But let's see here. Like I said, we'll get to all your guys' awesome questions here. But thank you from Buzz Lightyear. Launch day, let's go. Thanks for everything you do. Thank you so much. This is one last question before we get going. This is a really good one. I hope I can answer it in time. What are the implications of simply scaling up a rocket? Is there exponential performance loss? No, it's not necessarily exponential, but there actually is generally performance gained from scaling up a rocket. There's a few reasons. Some of it is that, as you scale up a cylinder, you can greatly reduce your skin scales up, by the radius squared, but the volume increases by radius cubed. So you gain some efficiency in how much do the propellant tanks weigh, what is their mass compared to their volumetric, how much volume they can have on the inside. Now, of course, you have to scale up the skin a little bit, but generally scaling up a rocket actually is better. Especially engines in general like to be bigger. Your tolerances don't have to be quite as perfect with a larger thing. If we're talking about having a 0.0001% clearance on a turbo blade, if that turbo pump assembly is huge, that gap is reasonable. If it's tiny, that gap is like microscopic. Okay, let's listen in here. And again, we'll answer tons more questions here at the end. We have a long queue, so I'll stick around for a bit. So let's enjoy this launch, guys.
Cygnus,
Both stages
20,
now being pressurized for launch. The range remains go for launch. A pristine day for a launch from the Space Coast. T-minus 40 seconds and counting.
.30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and liftoff. Go Cygnus, go Falcon.
Falcon 9 and Cygnus begin their flight, taking aim on the International Space Station. Pitch and roll program are in. Falcon 9 arcing out to the northeast.
MOD tier and pressure summit.
At T plus 40 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex
Power and
40.
telemetry nominal.
This is our 10th mission of the year and second to the International Space Station. And we've throttled down our engines in preparation for Max Q, which is coming up here in a few seconds. This is the largest structural load.
Supersonic.
This is the largest structural load that the vehicle will see on ascent.
Max Q.
And great news, we've passed through Max Q and are throttling those engines back up. Next up will be 5 events in rapid succession. That will be main engine cutoff, stage separation, second engine start or SES-1, the boost back burn startup on the first stage, and fairing separation. Main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, is where all 9 M1D engines on the Falcon 9 first stage will shut down. It's all those engines that you see there on your screen. And this will be followed by stage separation, or the separation of the first and second stages. A few seconds later, the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite to boost Cygnus to low Earth orbit, which is also known as SES-1. Then Falcon 9's first stage will ignite again to orient itself to head back to land with the boost back burn. Shortly thereafter, the fairing halves will separate and expose the spacecraft to the vacuum of space. Again, those 5 events coming up in a few seconds. MECO, stage separation, SES-1, the boost back burn starting up, as well as fairing separation.
Faster than Max Verstappen.
MECO.
Nothing's faster than Max Verstappen.
Stage separation confirmed.
All right. Here we go. Boost back burn. So
And back ignition. Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there we've had MECO, stage separation, the MVAC engine on the second stage ignited, as well as the boost back burn starting up on the first stage vehicle. And some awesome views there on your screen. On your left-hand side is a view from the first stage. On your right-hand side, a view from the second stage.
I love that. Stubby nozzle even.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And excellent news. We were able to see and hear the call out for confirmation of fairing separation. You can actually see one of the fairing halves falling back to Earth on your right-hand screen.
It's a heck of a boost back burn. First stage is still burning backwards. We'll talk more about that in a second.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
And we heard that call out, and you can see on your left-hand screen that the engines on the first stage vehicle have shut down, and that concludes the boost back burn for the first stage vehicle. You can also see that the grid fins are now deploying on the first stage.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectory.
And great call outs that both vehicles are on nominal trajectories. Some awesome views on your screen. Again, on your left-hand side is a view from the first stage. On your right-hand side is a view from the second stage looking at our MVAC engine. You're watching a live webcast for NG-20, Northrop Grumman's 20th resupply mission to the orbiting laboratory. This is SpaceX's 10th mission for 2024 and the second flight to the International Space Station just this year. You might be interested to know, in order to get to space, the rocket has to do more than just go up. It also has to go sideways and really, really fast. At liftoff, gravity is pulling straight down on the vehicle. As we ascend, we tilt the engines, and the technical term for that is called gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally. Now, we are still going up, but we are now also heading horizontally away from the launch pad, and that's what we call a gravity turn. An object typically needs to go 7.5 kilometers per second or 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. And that is exactly what this vehicle just performed. And on your left-hand side, again, is the first stage making its way back down to Earth. Today, we do have a land landing, so we do require 3 burns in order for it to make its way back to its landing zone. We've already completed the boost back burn for the vehicle as it oriented itself heading back towards land. Next up will be the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the Merlin engines will reignite. This helps to slow the vehicle down as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. And then will be followed by the last burn, which is the landing burn. That's a single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to touch down back on Earth. And a really cool view of that first stage vehicle from our ground tracking camera.
Tracking that from 100 kilometers away.
Amazing.
Wow.
And that entry burn is coming up here in just about 30 seconds or so.
We'll talk more about what we're seeing here after touchdown.
Views look amazing today.
Wow.
Again, you can see on your left-hand screen the view of Earth in the background of the first stage as it's coming back down to Earth to land on our landing zone. Right-hand screen, again, is of the second stage, looking aft at our MVAC engine.
What a beautiful day for a launch. Are you kidding me?
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
We just heard that call out, and you can see on your left-hand screen that the engines on the first stage vehicle have reignited. It's just about a 17-second burn.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And
Stage
awesome,
1 FTS has saved.
awesome tracking view of our first stage vehicle. As you can see that the entry burn has concluded. And the first stage vehicle continues to make its way back down to Earth.
Both vehicles continuing on a nominal trajectory.
They're really gliding that thing these days. Look at the angle
And this is an incredible view that we are getting of the first stage vehicle heading back to land. Right now it's using its 4 grid fins to guide
Stage 1 transonic.
the vehicle during its descent.
That is
And
phenomenal.
this is amazing. You can see those 4 grid fins deployed. What a view that we
Stage 1
have.
landing burn.
And you can see that the landing burn has begun for the vehicle. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches back down on land.
What a tracking shot. Look at the grid
Stage 2
fins.
FTS has saved. Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
This is easily some of the best tracking footage. Oh,
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
What
unbelievable.
a sight to see. Falcon has touched down. This booster just completed its 10th flight and the 268th successful landing of an orbital class rocket, including both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy boosters. That was such an incredible view to watch. Now, next up is SECO for the second stage. That's where we will shut down this MVAC engine.
They already did.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And great news, we heard that call out for SECO 1 as well as confirmation of good orbit.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow. Okay, there's a lot to talk about there. I want to hear, I don't know when.
At T plus 9 minutes and 15 seconds into the mission, the second stage has one last major task, commanding separation of the Cygnus spacecraft just a few minutes from now. For those of you just tuning in, you're watching a live webcast for NG-20, Northrop Grumman's 20th resupply mission to the International Space Station. This is SpaceX's 10th mission for 2024 and second flight to the International Space Station this year. And for those of you following along, you'll know that Cygnus will be joining 2 SpaceX Dragon spacecraft that are already docked at station as part of the Crew 7 and Axiom 3 missions. Crew 7 docked with the space station in August of last year, and Axiom 3 arrived earlier this month on January 20th.
Crazy. Okay, so we've already seen all that. So much stuff to talk about. One of the most fun things to think about is that tracking shot we'll see likely will show up in images.nasa.gov. hopefully in their isolation B-roll string, and we'll be able to see uninterrupted shots of those different tracking shots, which I think will be some of the best we've ever seen. I mean, the clarity on that. The only thing I wish is you could tell they couldn't keep up with focus on the big scope that we were watching most of the time. It was a little bit what looked like probably far focused, just a little bit. It was still, the tracking was unbelievable. Some of the best tracking I've ever seen in my life. I just can't even get over how cool that shot was. And the second shot too, and like this next tracking shot was also phenomenal. You can see the grid fins going crazy. I mean, it was just unbelievable. One of the cool things you can see, so let's talk about this here for a little bit while we're getting ready for them to do the stage deploy, or deploy the Cygnus capsule. I thought she said 9 minutes and 15 seconds. I think that was Seco 1-ish. I don't know when. Did someone hear when they're supposed to? Okay, so let's get back. I'm gonna take off landing legs for this one, just so we look the part, right? You know, don't want to totally mess this all up. We want it to look the part. We'll talk about what we actually were seeing there. So again, don't forget, guys, our metal Falcon 9 rockets are on sale. everydayastronaut.com/shop. Okay, so after stage separation, the grid fins are still tucked in. Stage separation occurs. The rocket is traveling at this point a good amount horizontally already. So don't forget, it's moving away from the launch pad and is starting to get some of that. Notice how fast the second stage is running there. I don't know if you can read that telemetry. It says 26,856 kilometers an hour is its horizontal velocity. That's so fast that it, you know, it's going horizontally fast enough that it will basically just always miss the horizon. And I have a video all about orbit versus suborbit, why there's a huge difference between those two. I promise, even if you know the difference and you've seen it and you've played Kerbal Space Program and stuff, watch that video because you will learn something, and just visualizing it, I think, will really help. Anyway, the first stage does some of that work. It puts in anywhere from, you know, a fifth to a third of the amount of work, or in the case of Vulcan, I feel like it's like over, you know, almost 2/3 of the work or something is done by that first stage. But for Falcon 9, especially with the return to launch site, it's not as much. It's about a quarter, a fifth, or something, about 25% the amount of work horizontally. So let's go with the second stage. The second stage heads towards the International Space Station and continues on to gain a lot of that velocity to actually get into orbit. Now, meanwhile, the first stage at that point, right at stage separation, is still falling away from the launch pad. It's on its ballistic trajectory away from the launch pad. So you'll notice as soon as it separates, it immediately flips around and then will light up 3 of its Merlin engines. Of course, it has 9 Merlin engines. It lights up 3 of them and boosts back. That's why it's called a boost back burn. First, it has to cancel out that velocity and then head back. So, you know, it's going like this. It turns around, cancels that velocity out, and heads back. At that point, its trajectory is just shy of the coast. It's just shy of the landing pad. They don't want to intentionally target like a few kilometers shy of the landing pad. And what they do is they're going to make it so those grid fins help steer it back towards land. And doing so, the steeper the angle is of the booster compared to its velocity vector, the more the atmosphere can bleed off from the rocket. The more work the atmosphere can do that the engines then don't have to do. So you'll notice, so as it's coming back down, they did the entry burn, which is, again, 3 engines, slows down about at least half the amount these days. And then all of a sudden, you'll notice after that entry burn, it kicks like this, crazy. So the grid fins, they crank the grid fins at an extreme angle. I don't know if you can really see that. That might be a bit too extreme, but they crank them over a lot at a certain degree. And that makes it so the booster is going to sit like this. And let's pretend now that it's falling straight down, okay? It's not quite straight down. It's still falling at a bit of an angle, but let's pretend it's falling straight down. The more it's like this, the more surface area of the rocket is against the airflow. The more... Okay, there we go. Stage separation. Sorry, we're going on a long rant.
And an incredible view. You can see the Cygnus spacecraft drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage, confirming successful spacecraft separation. The Cygnus spacecraft is now on its way to the International Space Station, expected to arrive in just under 40 hours at 3:20 a.m. Central Time. And that's going to wrap it up for me here in Hawthorne. Be sure to check out spacex.com/launches for a schedule of our upcoming missions. In the meantime, Rob, what's next for Cygnus?
Cool. Okay, glad to hear that. Thank you, Jesse and SpaceX. Good job. Congratulations, Cygnus and Northrop Grumman and NASA. It's all looking good. We'll keep talking about this stuff as they continue to sign off, because this is the stuff that makes me excited. And everyone wave goodbye to the space keg as it heads towards the International Space Station. So, okay, so the greater the angle is of the booster compared to the airflow, the more surface area. Look at how, imagine this amount of surface area versus this amount of surface area. Which one's going to slow down more? Again, imagine belly flopping as a skydiver or pencil diving. Like if you're feet first, your surface area relative to the wind stream is going to be a lot less than if you're belly flopping, right? You can bleed off a lot more speed if you're belly flopping. That's what they're trying. They're not belly flopping like Starship, but they are developing and using as much of an angle to produce lift and drag off the booster. So, and there is a certain point where if you go too far with that, you'd lose control. And the good thing is, naturally, at that point, most of the mass is down here. So it will naturally want to fall this way, fall engines first. And the grid fins are doing as much work as they can to make it kind of do this and help it glide over and make up that shortcoming to head back towards land. And again, the further downrange you do that, the more cross range you employ with the grid fins and the lift, the more velocity the atmosphere will scrub out, the less that landing burn has to do. You'll see the landing burn was pretty short. So pretty darn awesome. Yeah, so that's kind of the rant on boost back burns and landing burns. You guys have a ton of good questions. I'm going to get to some of those here. And again, thank you all for tuning in. This is fun. I love just doing a good old classic live stream where we get to talk about cool stuff. I hope that you guys had fun. And I mean, we should probably go back and rewatch the tracking shot, because that was just, now that we've talked about it, that was like the coolest thing ever. We are going to do that. I'm sorry, I'm working on redeploying these landing legs. But I'll do that in a second. Let's rewatch that landing burn for just a second, because that is like, okay, so tracking shot. Oh, the tracking shot of the year. Okay, so like we said, here it comes in for, it's doing the boost, the entry burn at this point on screen. And shutdown. Now notice it pitches really sharp right after shutdown. There we go. Look at that. And this angle's a bit confusing. Yeah. So look at that. See how much of an angle you can actually see the oh my gosh, the vapor trails coming off of it are coming more off the top. You can kind of get a sense of the angle here that is falling at. That is not falling, engines first, is falling at a pretty extreme angle. That is so freaking cool. Now watch this last part. Wow. When they switch, watch the grid fins. You can see them steering. Oh, that's so cool. Come on. Are you kidding me? That's one of the best. That's just one of the best tracking shots I've ever seen. All right. Do you hear that? Do you hear that, Andrew? And the Cosmic Perspective crew, we've got some work to do to catch up to that one. Which, by the way, we have some huge upgrades. Again, if you don't know this about me and about our team, by the way, they're talking about the Cygnus solar arrays being deployed here in a second. I'll let you know when they do that. But if you don't know anything about me and my team, and especially the Cosmic Perspective crew, I put everything back into our live streams, especially down there at Starbase when we're seeing these launches for the very first time. The Starship launches, IFT 1, 2, and 3. If you've watched our coverage from that or watched the replays, they're awesome. They are awesome. We're the only source right now for 4K, proper 4K, from camera, pixels to camera, to your screen in 4K the whole way through. Really hard to do, actually, from considering what we're dealing with. And our tracking shots are incredible. We have all these really expensive. I mean, normally if we were to buy these new, each tracking head alone costs $35,000. We have 4 of those bad boys now. And we just we're literally buying more scopes, more tracking solutions, better cameras, better slow-mo, global shutter so we don't get the wiggle. I mean, we're doing like everything we can to literally do as good of his job as what we just saw, maybe even better. You know, there's still, we're light and nimble, and we're making changes. We're doing the iterative design process, baby. We're trying to just up our game every single launch. If you saw our last one, especially the one that Ryan shot from the south, which he shot from the south with permission, but not quite in Mexico. I still don't recommend probably going over to Mexico, even though that view is spectacular. But you'll see that Ryan's shot is amazing. Unfortunately, the screen got so bright and stuff, he couldn't pull focus anymore, so we've already made changes to that. So that shot, when we get it in focus, will be an unbelievable. We also have a new thing. This is really exciting. Yeah, I'm just going to, since we're kind of down to nothing now. So another really fun thing with our controller. So I just love this stuff. I'm nerding out. I hope you guys don't mind. It's a Tuesday morning or afternoon, wherever you are, evening, whatever. This stuff gets me excited. But one of the things that we developed in-house now that Colin built us is basically these custom controllers that instead of using a joystick to try to like follow the rocket, you actually just have 2 gain knobs. You have a gain knob for up and down, and you have a gain knob for left and right. So you're actually just dialing in the speed of which it's going up. So all you're doing is you're matching your speeds. You're matching vertical vector, and then as it pitches over, you're matching the horizontal. You're just adding a little bit of slew that way. And that way, all you're doing is you're basically just trying to align the 2 speeds, the speed of your scope and the speed of the rocket, and just making sure and the cool thing is that you don't have any of those jerking movements of like a quick rapid adjustments of in the back and forth, because that ends up with fine gears on a mounting track, on a mount track. Those little tiny movements end up being big like jumps like that. So by having it be these smooth inputs, it just smooths. It's going to be incredible. I really think we're like onto the big stuff. So, okay, we've got so many questions, guys. I'm so sorry. Anywhere to see our video uncompressed? Unfortunately, like some of the footage is, one of them was 900 gigabytes, I think was the raw red file, uncompressed red file. 900 gigabytes, almost a terabyte for one like 10-minute shot or 20-minute shot. It's insane. That doesn't sound right. That does not sound right, but I think that is right. Let me look, actually. Believe it or not, it's in our Dropbox. Where is that? It's insane. Okay, that's under our archive. IFT2 is what it would be. And our biggest file is going to be there. Red. Okay, the transcoded is way smaller. Maybe I got rid of it was way too big. Rio spotting. Oh, I haven't seen the spotting scope. I forgot about that one. I can't find it, but maybe Ryan knows if Ryan's listening. But yeah. Regardless, they're huge. They're unbelievably big. At least on YouTube, when we post our raw compilations, they're less compressed. They're like 50 megabits per second. Decent, yeah. All right, so this is from Pascal Rowan, sorry. Will you be doing another interview with Elon at Starbase? It's been almost 2 years already since the last one. We had talked about it, last year, I guess was probably the last time that we had talked about it, but to be honest, he doesn't seem to care as much. It doesn't seem to be publicly like putting as much effort into Starship and SpaceX and Tesla as he used to. He's pretty involved with X, and I'm just here for the rockets. I'm here to see cool stuff, and I would love nothing more than to do another Starbase tour. So I think he knows that, and I think the team knows that, but I don't know if that's something that he's going to prioritize these days as much as he maybe would have a few years ago. Maybe we can get him back on that train. That would be really fun. This is from Matt V. That's crazy. My favorite hoodie is on sale. I wear it so often. I'm known in my engineering office for wearing that rocket hoodie. Definitely picking up another one. That's awesome. I love hearing that. Again, 50% off, 50% off of everydayastronaut.com. Then click on the RUDs, the Rapid Unscheduled Discount section. And you'll see so many classics, including the Formula One shirt. Grab like, oh, I'm hearing, hang on, what is going on? Hang on. Anyway, 50% off. That's huge. Get a backup. Like that's what I have backups of all my clothes these days because it's like I wear these so often that I don't want to wear one out completely right away. So that's right. 50% off of our classics. We're just clearing up inventory here. So if you see something you like, get it now because they will not be reprinted. They will not be remade. So get it while you can. everydayastronaut.com/shop. And yeah, you'll see youth shirts are $10. I mean, we're just trying to clear up inventory. We've got some new stuff coming that's going to be awesome. everydayastronaut.com/shop. And again, our metal Falcon 9 rockets that I was using in today's stream, those are also on sale for $285. Get it while you can. We're probably not doing another run of those either, and we're getting down to the last couple hundred, I believe. So yeah, don't sleep on it too long, or else you may never be able to get one. As we get ready for another one. Wait, did I say Formula One shirt? Did I say Formula One and I meant F1 shirt? That's bad. Oh no, is my life becoming that inundated with Formula One that I see F1 now and I go Formula One instead of? Oh no. Oh jeez. All right. In my view, what's the future of Cygnus? Would it one day be disposed of, replaced by other systems? I mean, we will be seeing Dream Chaser fly here soon, and that's also part of the commercial resupply contracts. But it's all about who can do what at the cheapest price. And as these things evolve, and as NASA continues to look for new partners and new commercial resupply contracts, as long as the price is there, then they've done a fantastic job. Cygnus has been a great vehicle for doing these missions. Obviously, it's been, Northrop Grumman knows how to make a space vehicle. They made James Webb Space Telescope. Like, they know how to make a spacecraft. So Cygnus has been extremely reliable on that end. So I don't see any reason for them unless they get outbid, with the future. But it'll probably fly as long as the International Space Station is around, is my opinion. All right, let's keep going here. 1 month of membership from Brandon. Awesome. First time since the Astro Awards I caught you live. Congrats on hosting a fabulous event in person. Keep up the great work, Tim, and the Everyday Astronaut team. Thank you, Brandon. Well, this is the first time I've streamed since the Astro Awards. It took about a week off, and we are working, we're about halfway done with a new video that I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but I really have been so proud of our most recent videos. This one is the second part of Why Don't They Just? It's kind of, why don't they just make a better launch vehicle? Why are we still using rocket engines? Why aren't we using jet engines on rockets, in the lower atmosphere to use the atmosphere to our advantage, or doing air launching, or for that matter, why aren't we yeeting rockets off the ground? We get really deep into it. It's one of those tons of fun numbers comparing two different things and going through simulation runs and all of the, this is to me one of the ultimate streams. So, it's one of the ultimate videos. I think you guys are really, really, really going to enjoy it. So get ready for that. I'm hoping to have that out. Realistically, I think we can actually have it out by the end of next week. I know, 45-minute long video out in another week and a half. It's a big deal. That's a big deal. Okay, this is from Fender90. Thank you so much for your super chat. Hi, a quick question. Has SpaceX ever considered running pipes with cryofuel under the Starship skin to cool it down upon reentry instead of using tiles, the same way engines nozzles are cooled? Any info on that? Yes, Fender. So first off, the concept you're talking about is regenerative heat shield. And that's actually something that Stoke Space is working on for their upper stage. It is a regenerative heat shield system using the cryogenic hydrogen to cool the system. So it is a thing. And SpaceX for a while talked about transpirational cooling, where you actually leak a little bit of propellant out of the skin through little pores and provide a boundary layer there of cold propellant, cooler propellant. Still a really cool idea. I think the numbers just didn't work out there, and I would still love to see that. I would still love an active heat shield like that, because as long as you have the propellant mass to do so, I almost wonder if that's not lighter than the heat shield, and definitely more rapidly reusable. You're not having to inspect heat shield tiles and replace heat shield tiles between launches. You just do a visual inspection and go, look, it's good to go. Pressurize it up or something and go, cool. Everything looks good. Let's see. This is, yeah, so that's SpaceX has talked about it. They had looked at it apparently. They're on to just the more traditional hexagonal heat shields, you know, this style. So this is from Michael Maxey. Michael, the Astro Awards was an excellent show. Sorry that an Arctic bum rush out a big chill on the event, but it was a major fire starter for future Astro Awards. Thank you so much. We do have Martin Luther King weekend also reserved for next year. So I believe it's January 18th or 19th or something. Next year we have reserved already in Austin again at the Paramount Theater. We will be making an announcement for pre-sale tickets and stuff like that here in the next couple months, trying to get way ahead of it this year instead of the last like 6 weeks of the year. So get ready for that, and hopefully you guys can make it down in person. We're doing a lot of changes to hopefully make it a lot more affordable for you guys, give you enough time to get down there, offer some more things like more panels, make more of a day of it than just the Astro Awards, and I think it's going to be absolutely awesome. Let's see, John Depker with 26 months of membership. Thank you so much, John. Go Falcon 9, go Cygnus. Thanks for your awesome. You're welcome. Tim B, yeah, we did explain the difference between Cygnus and Cargo, Cygnus and Cargo Dragon. One of the biggest differences is that the Cargo Dragon capsule can be reused and repurposed and re-enters. So it actually re-enters using it, and it has a heat shield and has parachutes, and Cygnus does not. Cygnus is disposable. It's basically the ISS, the International Space Station's space keg trash can. So they load it up, and then it burns up on re-entry and disposes of any literal trash and unused and unnecessary items to clear up space on the International Space Station. So it is actually, I mean, I know that sounds like, oh, but like you need to do that. And it does a very good job of you know, disposing of things. So yeah. Do we know how much boost it could add to the ISS? Are we talking about how much boost could the Cygnus capsule? I don't think the Cygnus capsule is boosting it ever, because it's not docking down. It's not aligned to the docking port that's down the middle of the ISS. I don't think. Is it boosting it? Huh. If anyone knows, I don't. It can boost the ISS. Then there you go. It can boost it. I don't know how much. I don't remember it being able to boost. That's cool. I like that. If we can get a number on how much higher it can, that'd be awesome. Let's see. Can the Starship use a reentry burn like Falcon 9 first stages? If so, why does it need thermal protection? So Starship upper stage would not want to do a reentry burn. When you're coming in from orbital velocities, it's just that entry burn would be like, so think about how much the upper stage is burning, right? So the upper stage burns for like 6 minutes, right? And goes from, I'm making up numbers here, but let's say it goes from 5,000 kilometers an hour up to 27,000 kilometers an hour, right? It increases, you know, almost 20,000, around 20,000 kilometers of velocity is what it adds, right? And that takes, you know, in the case of a Falcon 9, it takes that whole second stage basically, right? It burns all of that propellant to get that much velocity into the vehicle, right? So now if you're doing that in the reverse and you're trying to do an entry burn before you re-enter from space to slow down enough, you have to have that same amount of propellant. Like, it's the same thing. So now you'd have to have a full Starship upper stage to slow down enough to have like a proper entry burn. Now, the way you can look at this though is, which obviously, if you had a full Starship, I mean, now we're talking about 2,000 tons of mass that you'd have to put into space in order to slow it down enough. So the better thing to do is to use the atmosphere to your advantage. The atmosphere can do a ton of work. You just have to be able to handle those high temperatures from reentry heating. So the first stage, though, is not doing an entry burn. The first stage will do a boost back burn and then just a landing burn. And because it's made out of stainless steel, and because it has the way they're hoping to fly it back in should allow it to be substantially, yeah, like the booster can just kind of take it. It can handle higher heat loads than a Falcon 9, and they're just going to let it re-enter the first stage without doing an entry burn, which is really, really cool. Let's see here. Let's pointy end up flaming down. We did that. What about your training tell us. So I've talked about this a few times. Basically, every time I'm on air, I feel like I get these questions, and I saw a few more. We'll get to those, but these kind of answer the same question. We're waiting on Starship. The Dear Moon team is waiting on Starship to be, to have some big successes and make some major steps forward. As is NASA. I mean, this is an incredibly ambitious vehicle. Starship is like so insanely ambitious, but it's one of those things where like once it's solved and once it's flying and flying regularly, it'll be no big deal. Just like when the Falcon 9 was trying to land, everyone was like, this will never work. This is ridiculous. I can't believe they're trying this. And now they've landed almost 200 times in a row. Like it's completely game-changing, completely different. And it's something that people just literally didn't think was possible at all. So Starship's in that same boat right now. Starship's in that same realm of like, it just seems impossible. And it seems like, so far people are just making fun of it. Like, oh, so far all they've done is blown up, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, they're doing things that have never been done before. And when they figure it out, it'll be like game changing. It'll just be like, all right. And they'll iterate on that and make it better, faster, gooder, stronger, all of the things. So once Starship's flying, so we're just looking for milestones. Once they can do reuse and in-flight propellant, transfer and have a tanker in space, then it's game time. So we'll wait until that, until they've definitely done reuse. I don't know our exact training timeline. This isn't something that we have any information on, and I don't think they're, developing it until the vehicle's mature enough to have a plan, for training. It was like, what if you develop all this training regimen and then it's like, oh, you know what? We made a massive change to Starship because this wasn't quite working out. So now we're going to do it this way. There's no point in training on something that would be obsolete, right? So yeah, hopefully that explains it. Question: if Starship is getting bigger and can have more fuel, what are the benefits and how to use that extra fuel? So the benefit is if you can lift more propellant, right? If your vehicle has enough thrust to lift propellant, obviously if you weigh it down with so much propellant that it can't even get off the pad, if it's just sitting there and it's going nowhere, then that extra propellant did nothing, right? And now you're actually lifting empty tanks, which is like the worst thing you want to do. You don't want to lift empty tanks. Empty tanks are not massless. So if you can lift more propellant, if you have a strong enough vehicle to stretch it and make it taller, that means you can burn longer and or you could lift a heavier object. So you can either send the same, let's say right now it can take 150 metric tons into I'm making up numbers, 500 by 500 kilometer orbit. Now, maybe if it's stretched and has more propellant, you can maybe take it up to an 800 by 800 payload or orbit, or you could maybe do like 175 tons or something to low Earth orbit. So, the implications of more, if you can lift more propellant and use more propellant efficiently and have enough thrust to do so, it just turns into more payload mass, more delta V altogether. How often have you reused fairings? A lot. I mean, they're up to like fairings being reused almost 10 times now, I think. I've lost track. It's like, it's just common. It's way more often than not, they're reusing fairings, which is so cool. Why does the second stage look like it has an inflatable tinfoil background? There's a thermal protection system that protects the vehicle. This is basically where the turbo pump assembly is. So behind the nozzle extension, there's a lot of hardware there that they still need to protect and have thermal considerations for. And I'm trying to think about it actually, if it's to protect I'm not actually sure which side it's protecting from. If it's trying to keep why would it care if it's radiating heat out into space? And what on it needs to be protected from heat from in space? For direct heat radiation there. I'm not entirely sure why unless it's just to prevent. So there are some a few reaction control systems and things that are at the bottom of the vehicle that might need to be thermally protected so that it doesn't totally boil off. Like there might be some thermal considerations there, but I'm actually not entirely sure what the biggest reason is. So stubby nozzles used when it's a lighter payload, or it's just not as energy intensive a mission. So this is from also Tyler Lutz. Thank you so much too for your 9 months of membership. The logic of using a stubby nozzle versus the full size, it's cheaper. It's less expensive, less effort. If you can perform the same amount of work by having a smaller nozzle, then do it. You know, it's like if you're just wasting, the second stage gets thrown away anyway, right? And if you can do that without having to use all of that expensive niobium, I mean, even if you're saving $200,000, think about that. That's a lot. It might be a lot more than that. It might be $500,000. It might be $600,000. I have no idea the exact number that they say, but niobium is expensive and hard to procure. So when they're flying at this rate, you know, when they're flying at, they're aiming for like 148 missions this year. It's insane. If it can be to the point where niobium could become like the limiting factor on how many second stages they can produce. So if they can use, let's say, if you shorten it, don't forget, you know, as the diameter, as the circumference increases, the amount of material drastically increases, you know. So it's basically by the square. So if the bottom part of the nozzle, even if you remove what looks like a little amount of it, could be 50% of it, just because of, you know, the fact that the diameter is increasing, so therefore the volume and the surface area is increasing dramatically. So the amount of niobium you use, if you cut the length of it, let's say in half, I don't know the number, could be more than 50% of savings on that niobium nozzle extension. Let's see here. We've talked about this guy, Jordan. Actually, I heard Tom Mueller talking about it on NSF Live the other day. And I need to hear it again because I got interrupted right in the middle of the answer. But some of it is a little bit, don't forget, there is a little bit of a difference in mixture between the exact percentage of methane used between Raptor and the BE4. BE4 calls it liquid, liquid natural gas, which natural gas then is just a slightly less amount of methane basically to make it natural gas. It's a concentration of methane is kind of one of the determining factors of what makes it natural. Like natural gas is kind of the umbrella term for methane. What is it? Propane and ethane, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's, you know, that's kind of the umbrella term, natural gas. And so if you have a mixture of that, it's just considered liquid natural gas. And if it's beyond like 93 or 95%, if it's like 95% or above then of methane, then it's just considered liquid methane ish. So that's kind of like, it's a little bit of a pedantic thing, but some of that could be, and also the, you know, fuel oxygen mixture rate could be different there too. I need to listen to Tom Mueller's butane is another one. There we go. I need to listen to Tom Mueller's answer on that again. Okay, this is Suds, were those NASA's cameras or SpaceX's cameras tracking it? It was cinema worthy. So the big ones are the NASA, like, they're massive scopes out there. They have like full tracking trucks that are huge scopes. That was the main one that we were seeing. And so NASA, you know, it's a NASA mission. NASA will support it with tracking assets. We always get those incredible images back. So definitely awesome. Let's see. When is Starship Flight 3 or IFT 3? When is that expected? It's looking like February is probably on the table. I would expect it for sure. I mean, by mid-March, like almost no matter what, I expect that flight to be by mid-March. That's 6 weeks away. I think within like 6 months or 6 weeks. Sorry, geez. I expect it within about 6 to 8 weeks, ish, based on, you know, the readiness of the vehicle. We're still waiting to see some licenses appear. You know, once licenses appear, we did see the FCC testing license that we saw the other day had nothing to do actually with flight. So yeah, we'll see. I'm thinking within 6 weeks, hopefully. BJ Sig, do you think they're trying to simulate Starship Super Heavy flight characteristics to get more data on some of those Falcon flights? I mean, this is something they've been doing for a long time. They've been doing that pitch like that to bleed off velocity for a long time, but they just keep, I think, doing as much as they can, kind of pushing that envelope to see how much can they bleed, you know, by bending the rocket, it's not bending at all, but by pitching it over and using the atmosphere. Unfortunately, there's just not much of a correlation between, you know, you have different diameters, different densities of the vehicles, different, overall totally different shapes, different profiles. Everything about the two vehicles is so different that there's just really not going to be that strong of a correlation. Yes, there's some things that would be, that would correlate, but yeah, nothing too crazy. Let's see. Well, thank you so much from Gabriel. aerospace engineering student here. I use your videos to extend my education beyond the classroom. The quality of information you make is amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot. And like I said, this next video I think will be awesome. I think there's 3 videos that are literally in the queue that we're like actively working on right now. So that's always very exciting to me when we have like that much stuff to get through. So stay tuned. There'll be a lot of content coming. I hope you guys don't miss me too much. And yeah, thank you. And Micah, again, we talked about the video compression thing. We don't host it uncompressed anywhere, but that is a thing we want to do someday, is have like an active library where you could potentially download uncompressed stuff from an archive, but we will see. John, thank you so much. Here's a bit that I can spare to keep the cameras running smoothly. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Where did I get my Vulcan model? From ULA's website. So the Vulcan, the Atlas V, and the Delta IV Heavy are all from ULA's website. We will someday have those in our same 1:100 scale models. Our next ones that we're working on, by the way, I had these on stream the other day when I was talking about this, and I'm so dumb for not actually having it. This is going to be our next one. These are our prototypes. They're going to be the Mercury program. So Mercury Atlas and Mercury Redstone are going to come in a 2-pack like this, since they're so tiny. You know, I mean, look at, these are to the same scale. These are to the same scale. Let me say that one more time. These are to the same scale. Like, that is just crazy. The first rocket that took a human from the United States into space on a suborbital ride rode on this pencil compared to just the upper stage of the Falcon 9. Look at it compared to the booster. Isn't that insane? Like, when I saw these to scale, I was questioning ourselves until I got out the ruler. And I was like, this is actually crazy. That's why I'm so excited to do a collection like this, where we have rockets at the same scale. So, and this is also the Atlas V. This is an orbital rocket. Took that basically that same Mercury capsule to orbit. Now, here's the cool thing about the Atlas. The Atlas has detachable booster engines. So that's what they did. They actually detached this whole engine skirt with 2 booster engines. It was a stage and a half. So when people ask, single stage to orbit, can you do it? I mean, they kind of did, but had they not dropped these engines off, it would not have made it to orbit. So that's what made it, like, you know what I mean? So yes, it's kind of orbital. Actually, it could have probably made it to orbit without the payload. So the amount of mass that they dropped is pretty close to proportional to the amount of payload that they were able to put into orbit. So stage and a half, we actually are going to have. So this is, these are the prototypes, but it has the sustainer engine there, and yeah, I love this kind of stuff. These are the details that I absolutely am so proud of with our rockets, and it's going to be so fun to have these. Going back, I like that we're going through history, so we're going to start. I'm really excited about this because it just helps drill in the scale, the fact that we're doing everything to the same scale. And so I don't know when those will be out, hopefully this summer. And then the next one, I don't know where we're going next. I would like to get, maybe Soyuz on there. I like going through human spaceflight stuff. Shuttle would be awesome. Buran would be awesome. But I don't know, whoopsies, where exactly we're going next. Thank God these are made out of metal, because I just totally knocked it over. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So, but someday then we'll get into all of the other rockets. Like, it'll be really fun to see, like I want to do like a small launch, another thing about this same size with all the small launchers, like, get Alpha in there and Electron. See, we'll have to get we'll have to make sure they're all okay being put together in the same box. But it feels really silly. You saw how small that Mercury capsule is. It'd be really silly to make 1/100 scale and sell just like a rocket this big, So it'd be more fun to have it in a package. And people asked when Starship will be when it stops iterating all the time. And also think about it, it's going to be, the size of a vacuum cleaner. Like, it's going to be so big and so expensive and huge and expensive to ship that we really don't want to make that until it's like done evolving every 10 seconds. So it'll probably be a few years. Yeah. So this is a great question from F.R. Garrett Nelson. Forgive my ignorance, but how does a boost back burn of just a few seconds scrub out all of the forward velocity that was achieved over the course of minutes? Great question. Very good question. No ignorance necessary. So the big thing to remember is for the first 40 seconds or so, the rocket is traveling completely vertically. There is no mostly completely vertically. There's really no horizontal velocity at all. So right there, you don't have to worry about that. As it's pitching over, the vehicle is still fully loaded with fuel, and propellant. So it has all this propellant on board, right? And it's pushing all of that extra mass. At stage separation, the booster is almost empty. It's down to like 15-20% of the propellant. So it weighs substantially less, plus it lets go of the entire upper stage, which is full of propellant and the payload. So there goes, 100 tons or whatever it is. Booster then flips around, and now it's only pushing that extra bit of mass and the dry mass of the booster, which is about 20 tons. And so it has a lot less work to do. And so a lot of the inertia and the momentum of the vehicle of the first stage is vertical. It's doing a lot of vertical work to get out of the atmosphere. It's obviously turning over and pitching horizontally, but again, it's only doing about a quarter of the velocity that's necessary or less to get into orbit. So it has by terrestrial means an insane amount of horizontal velocity, but in terms of the rocket equation, it has very little, 20-25% of horizontal velocity. So by the time it lets go, it's empty. So therefore it has a lot less mass to push around. Therefore it does not need nearly as much propellant to do that same amount of work. Again, via the rocket equation. Yeah. More or less, Steve. Yeah, they use a similar flight profile, slewing horizontal, then back for touchdown. Yep, they all kind of do this thing. They've kind of always done that. It's a bit of a safety thing, because if the entry burn doesn't work or something would happen, on the way back, if worst case scenario it fails and something happens, that happened with B1050 in when was that, 2017 or 2018? I think end of 2017, maybe early 2018. They lost booster B1050. And it fell short of the Cape. It didn't come anywhere near, as a good kilometer off the shore, because it couldn't make that dog leg through the air. So it's kind of a safety thing. If something goes wrong, it's going to fall into the ocean and not, potentially damage infrastructure on the Cape or potentially property and human life. So they intentionally do slew them quite a bit. I think they're trying to do that more and more, because again, the more you dogleg over using aerodynamics, the more velocity you kill. So, yeah. Why does Sierra Space Dream Chaser launch on Vulcan instead of Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy? Just probably whoever they talked to about that. I'm not exactly sure, the deals worked out behind the scenes. Some of it could just be a working relationship already between Sierra Nevada and ULA. It could just be, it was part of it though. I think the NASA resupply contracts in general, they really like to have non-redundant systems. Dissimilar redundancy. That's what it's called. There we go. Where they have different rockets flying, so they don't ever have, say there was a problem with the Falcon 9 and it was grounded, they still need to be able to resupply the International Space Station. And actually this happened in 2014, where we had both the Antares rocket be grounded and the Falcon 9 rocket grounded overlapping. So 2 different rockets were grounded. 2 out of our 3 ways to resupply the International Space Station were grounded at the same time. Luckily, the Progress vehicle was still flying, so they have a big stash of content on the International Space Station to be able to pull from. So it's not like the crew would ever be super at risk for having a grounded rocket. But in general, having 2 completely different rockets flying simultaneously, a lot less chance of having no access to the International Space Station. Let's see here. Again, from Bjorn, when do I go to space? And also from Reen asking, are still going on Dear Moon? I did talk about that just a few minutes ago. Hopefully I answered those questions. Thank you guys so much for your chats. Again, we're waiting on Starship. And like I said, mark my words, Starship will go from impossible to completely mundane and rudimentary very soon. It'll just be like a flip of a switch almost. And it'll go from, man, it's 3 months, it's 4 months, this thing will never be flying regularly, to this thing is flying extremely regularly. That's just how this stuff works. It's the SpaceX way. We've seen it, people laughed at them again for trying to land a Falcon 9 booster. Now that's so normal, we don't even remotely think about it. And they're still the only ones doing it. That's what's crazy. They're that far ahead. No one else is doing that. It's just crazy. Oh, this is awesome. Patrick, 53 months of membership. Greetings from Germany. It's so nice to meet you last year at Space Creator Day. Will I be attending this year? I would like to, yes. We'll see kind of schedule-wise and commitment-wise what I'm going to be involved in at the end of the year. I would like to. So tell the creators if they want me there them you want to see me there, and or the people that put it on, tell them that you want to see me there, and I'll make it there again, and hopefully meet more people from Europe. That was super fun. Does Cygnus always launch on Falcon? From Mouseback. No, this is the first time it's launched on Falcon 9. It's the 4th time it's launched on a non-Antares rocket. So generally, it always launched on a Northrop Grumman Antares rocket. But in 2014 and 15, it launched on an Atlas V 3 times. So because they had a stand down again, we were just talking about that a second ago, that the Antares had a failure, so it flew on Atlas V. By the way, OA6 I think was the one that I attended, and they actually had a problem where the RD-180 shut down like 4 seconds early. And if you think about, at the end of the first stage booster, those 4 seconds are like 3 Gs of acceleration, 3G of acceleration. That's a lot of delta V. That's like 100 meters per second or something. I don't know. You guys do the math. 30 times 4, 120-ish meters per second or whatever of velocity. That's a lot of velocity that was not put into the upper stage. So the upper stage had to do that extra legwork, and luckily it could and did, and it successfully got into orbit and made it to the ISS. So fun fact, it almost didn't make it to the ISS for OA6, but that was the closest thing to an Atlas V failure, I think, almost. Yeah, it still was a successful mission, but the RD-180 was a naughty engine on that one. Let's see, Johans, is it confirmed that you won't do another round of Falcon 9 model? I mean, we've been sitting on these ones now. We did a run of, I don't remember, 500 or 800 or something the last time we did a run. And, we've been sitting on the last couple hundred now for a while. No, I think the last time we did 1,000. And we've been sitting on, yeah, I know they're so expensive to ship because they're really heavy. They're like 2 kilograms. It's over 4 pounds. Which is the good thing and the bad thing. Like, the good thing is they're really high quality, and like I just, I handle this thing so rough all the time. I just tipped it over a second ago. It's still standing, That's the good and the bad things, that they are heavy, they're really well made, but it makes for really expensive shipping internationally, and makes for expensive VAT and customs and all that stuff. Of course, the number that you do see, though, again, is including like door-to-door tracking, all the customs paid for. There's no surprises. You won't get it stuck in customs. You won't get it, all of a sudden have a letter in the mail that says, hey, come pick this up and you owe us 100 extra euro or whatever, which was the case before with some of our old shipping methods. And a lot of shops that you use, you guys maybe have experienced this before, where stuff just gets stuck in customs. And we go through all that, and we also just let you know the actual amount up ahead of time, so there are no surprises. Someday, if we are sitting on, a pallet's worth or something, maybe it still would make a ton of sense to ship a pallet over to Europe and then distribute a few of them from Europe. That makes a ton of sense. If we do that, we'll announce it. I'll ping the shop about it again. It's logistically very hard to do, but it makes so much sense. I mean, it'd be smart to have a European distribution. From Not Heisenberg, good to hear from you. How are you? Mars fun, planning ahead here. Hey, I'm not going to... I know I always said I'd never go to space. I'm not going to Mars. I don't want to go to Mars. Oh, I would love nothing more than this Nepitz. If I can't get another Starbase tour with Elon, how about Gwen? Yeah, I would love that. I would absolutely adore that. She is so great, and she is now kind of the boss at Starbase too. So it'd be super fun to hear from her and do a tour with her. How do you dissipate heat if it's in a vacuum? So don't forget there's convection, radiation, and conduction. So in space, you just don't have convection. You don't have any atmosphere to wick heat away, but you still have radiation. That's how we receive heat from the sun. We still receive the heat energy from the sun through radiation through the atmosphere. Radiation still transfers to the atmosphere. That's why you see the nozzle of the Falcon 9 glowing bright red, because it's radiating its heat out into the environment, out into space. Not through an atmosphere, just through radiation, through basically through light, more or less. And so there's still energy being radiated that way. So yeah, that's how you can dissipate heat in a vacuum. Imagine using Starship as just a cargo ship to orbit to carry the materials to orbit for building a larger Earth to Mars ferry to carry humans to Mars. That's a little bit confusing, Fender, but I see what you mean. To building a larger Earth to Mars ferry to carry humans to Mars. Okay, imagine using Starship just as a cargo ship to orbit to carry the materials to orbit, for building a larger Earth to Mars ferry to carry humans to Mars. That is one of the hardest sentences I've ever read in my entire life. Let me put the appropriate pausing in. Imagine using Starship just as a cargo ship to orbit that carries materials to orbit for building a larger Earth to Mars ferry to carry humans to Mars. I nailed it. I still think there is potential for, a dedicated cycler, an Earth to Mars. If we're really talking about getting humans to Mars and even the moon, like even going to the moon, it makes a ton of sense to just keep something in space that never re-enters, never lands, never even lands on the moon, just goes between Earth and moon orbits, right? So it's lightweight. It doesn't have heat shields. It doesn't have landing legs. It doesn't have any of those systems you don't need there. And then you just always dock up to it. You either dock up to it to, from low Earth orbit and then re-enter in a different vehicle, or vice versa. You dock up to it from lunar orbit and then land on, I still think we need just a dedicated, especially with the Artemis program. Like, I can't believe they didn't dedicate that. Makes a ton of sense. And for Mars, yeah, someday. For the first ones, though, it makes a ton of sense just to, if Starship becomes truly as inexpensive as SpaceX thinks it will be, then yeah, send 5 of them. Who cares? Whatever. And start building some infrastructure on Mars. But yeah, eventually, if we're going there constantly, having larger Earth to Mars ferry could make sense. From Macbeth 18, when the first stage comes back, do they burn extra fuel to lighten the weight for landing? So they don't necessarily burn extra fuel. I actually do wonder if there's ever been times. That's a good question. If there's actually been times where it would have been too heavy for the landing gear, so they had to just do a longer entry burn. I don't know if but the main reason that they do those burns is just to survive the re-entry heat. So they slow down. Again, velocity cubed is close to your relative amount of heat transferred to the vehicle. So if you're slowing down in half, it's actually 8 times less heat. So that's the main reason why they actually slow down. From Dave. Hey, Dave. Good to hear from you. Do I think SpaceX will actually retire Falcon 9 once Starship is fully operational, or will they use the knowledge from Starship design a fully reusable stainless steel second stage for Falcon 9? I think Falcon 9 is more or less done. It's as soon as Starship is operational, it on its own is more or less obsolete, and just that system is obsolete. I don't think they'll continue to evolve Falcon 9 at all once Starship is flying. I think they'll fly in tandem together for quite often. I think there'll be probably 10 years of overlap where Falcon 9 is still flying while Starship is operational, just because there's that long of a backlog of missions that are dedicated for Falcon 9. Crew Dragon, commercial resupply missions, all these missions, Department of Defense missions that are made for a particular vehicle that won't make the switch over. There's some that can and will, but I'll bet we'll have almost a 10-year gap between the first operational Starship mission and the last Falcon 9 mission. That's my guess. Buran model would be crazy, says Own Bucket. Yes, it will be. I think that'll be awesome. Thank you so much to Richard Smallwood. I really appreciate that for the super chat. And this is from Suds. Isn't China, thank you again for the super chat, isn't China copying SpaceX's Starship? Very actively and clearly inspired design. I think so, yeah. I mean, they're definitely working on Falcon 9 clones, and we're seeing some Starship clones pop up. And that's the reality we're in, is if we don't invest a lot and actually have some continued national investment in the aerospace industry, China's going to catch up fast. I'm just looking at their EV market. China has gone from not producing any EVs in the last 5 years, all of a sudden producing gobs of EVs, and really good ones. BYD. I mean, there's a lot of really good EVs that are on the international market that are doing really, really, really well. And China knows how to scale things up like crazy. They undercut people like crazy. IP, intellectual property, just really isn't a thing there, culturally. There's a really cool documentary. I don't remember who did it, but it's about going to it's kind of like the Silicon Valley of China. I forget what the town is called. But the city. It's a massive city. And the idea there is they think it's archaic to have intellectual property almost. It's well, who cares if you thought of it? Did you build it? And so then the race is just who can build it best and fastest and at scale is the winner. And we see that. And that's, if they're taking that idea to the aerospace industry, yeah, we better be stepping up our game, because China's going to catch up big time. I mean, even Landspace's GQ2 rocket is incredibly impressive. So and they're scaling up beyond that already. They're yeah, it's gonna be crazy. All right, we got two more before I head out here from Robert Hosford. Thanks, Tim of the Ping Talk. I'm not sure what that even means, but you're welcome, Robert. Thank you very much. And from Will Barrow, hello, Tim. Do you know anything about one of today's payloads called HPE Spaceborne Computer 2? I don't, but I wonder if we talked about it in our pre-launch preview. HPE Spaceborne 2. I don't actually know anything about it personally. I don't know anything about it. Sorry. The answer is no. No, I don't know anything about today's payloads, the HPE Spaceborne Computer 2. I apologize. I wish I did. Have not heard anything about that. So, unfortunately, fortunately, that's going to do it for me. It's time for me to eat some lunch, get out there and get back to working on this new video that I'm working on that you guys are going to love. So, just get ready. I hope if you guys didn't watch part 1 of Why Don't They Just, where we talk about why don't they launch from mountains in the equator, definitely watch that. I promise. Again, even if you know the answer, still watch it, because there's a lot of like details that we add, a lot of awesome animations and comparisons and numbers. I love numbers. I love seeing, like, instead of being like, yeah, it'll make a pretty good improvement. Like whenever I'm typing that out, like it'll improve by, and I'm like, oh God, what percent? And then it'll lead to a rabbit hole of like actually trying to find the calculations on the differences. And those are my favorite videos. Those are my favorite videos to find examples and answers. And this is definitely part 1 and part 2, very, very deep in that. And again, even the Vulcan rocket video, if you guys watched that one that I put out like 3 weeks ago now, comparing it, like I didn't want to just know approximately. I wanted numbers. I wanted hard numbers. And that's always hard to find when you're talking price and stuff. So yeah. All right, my friends. That's going to do it for me. I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. What a good stream. What a beautiful launch. I can't wait for images.nasa.gov to have those ISO B-rolls of that tracking footage. That is going to be outstanding. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time again. Don't forget, go to everydayastronaut.com/shop to get 50% off a lot of classic merch by going to the RUDS section. You can tell that I've worn this shirt like 1,000 times because it's starting to get all crinkled, which I kind of love. I love when shirts actually age. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.